I removed the center console where the power switches are. This is what the back side looks like. I removed the front passenger window switch because it was sticking. It wasn't really working. You can sort of see it's not really working, it's sticking. It looks like someone spilled coffee. You can see sort of like goopiness. So it's not supposed to work that hard. It's supposed to have a nice, clean. This one's sticky too. Looks like this one also got spillage. This one works better. So I'm gonna clean it and see how there's some goop. So I'm gonna clean it and see if I can put it back together. Well, I'm back, and this is the switch. You can see nice and clean, and goop is off. What I used was a toothbrush. This was clean, so you can see how dirty it got, with hand sanitizer. So I just use your run-of-the-mill hand sanitizer. And the reason is that since there's a lot of electrical components and I didn't want to have any residual water floating around, it all evaporates. So I don't have to worry about drying or water or any short circuits once current passes through it. So I got some more pieces to put together and go from there. Back and put it back together. So this is the passenger side and this is down. So it's a two-step process. So it's one click, and then if you want full down, so that's much easier to control, and then up is nice, beautiful work. When you take apart the switch, there are these little pieces, little spring that goes inside there. And then each of these have a little brass pin, and this ball bearing sits on top of the pin, and it helps to pivot. One stays there and one goes there, and it helps to create that pivot motion. Pretty clever. Just one resistor to work the, this little light bulb here. It's a pretty simple switch, I guess. The rear window switch that was sticking earlier, you can see how it's got goop and spillage of creamer and coffee. So even though there aren't any good cup holders in the car, someone still tried to drive with coffee in the car and resulted in a spill. As I inspected the back of the central panel, I noticed a lot of cracks and what looks like crazy glue repairs. So what I'm thinking is happening is users or people were pushing too hard down on the buttons, and it causes these clips keep the switch in. So it creates the resistance, and I think it starts to break the plastic, you see? Then what happens is the switch then moves inside of the pocket. So what I'm going to do is I have epoxy. So I'm going to go around this whole piece, and I'm going to start putting some epoxy in, and that's going to make it permanent. You can see here that there's actually a piece missing, and then this piece they try to repair. Well, actually it's supposed to be on an angle, I guess. That's okay. But it looks here, there's a piece missing, and there's another piece missing up here. So I'm going to clean this out and then get it ready for epoxy. And I think that's going to make this much more stable. Because this plastic is, it's 25 years old. I think it's gotten brittle. So I was thinking, if these are broken, that means these are pieces may have fallen off inside the vehicle. So I went into the vehicle with the flashlight and long tweezers, and sure enough, I did end up finding the pieces right there. So these are clips that help to hold the panel down into the console, keeps it from rattling and moving. So I'm getting my tools ready for epoxy. This is the system I'm using. There's the resin, West system, 1 pump, and then the ratio is 1 pump of the hardener. So this is a slow curing, so I have more work time. And I mix it in this cup right here. And I use this stir stick. Now I have to get into tight spaces, so I have a resin brush, but what I did is I took a second one and I trimmed it with a couple of different points, and I'm going to try to be able to get in to these tight spots and apply a little bit of epoxy. And I have these cotton squares to wipe up any mess, and we'll see what happens. I did find the clips for here and here inside this console in the car, but I couldn't find that one there. That one's missing. I couldn't retrieve it. It could have fallen down. So that's that for that repair, and I'll let you know how it turns out. Next installment of the console repair. It looks like a gooey mess, but I essentially just retouched over all of the cracked pieces, and I was able to reinstall 2 of the missing broken tabs, so that should sit in better. And a couple of these pieces, like here, and yeah, actually these 2 were broken right here, and then this one was broken across here, so this was lifting. So I glued all that down back to the wood, and gonna let it dry. Now this stuff does dry pretty quick. You can kind of see how it's starting to dry already. So in a couple hours, this should be done. Well, this is inside the car. This is where the console used to be, and what I just wanted to show is that you can kind of see in there where the coffee spilled. I cleaned up the screws and inside the gear shifter, cleaned up where the wood sits in so it sits in nicely. And these are the plugs for the switches that will go underneath, and there was some coffee stickiness on this surface, and I cleaned it all up so that the switch and this plug will connect and mate properly. So in a couple hours, we'll see how this goes. Hello, I am jumping ahead and showing you that I was able to get the panel back installed and the switches all back in. So this is the front passenger, which was the worst, and you can see how it works beautifully. This is the rear. And then this is the child safety lock. So I polished everything up and got everything back fitted in, and this is kind of what the finished product looks like. I'm really happy with the result of the cleaning that happened. What I didn't show was how everything went back together. Really, as in the other videos, the plugs just slide in perfectly. The rear switches are different than the front switches because of the fold down feature. So it was easy not to confuse which plug goes into which one. It's pretty foolproof. This little trim piece just snaps in through friction, and I dropped this in over the gear shifter, carefully lined up the tabs with the holes down here, pushed that down, and then just worked my way to the front, pushing things down so that they fit snugly. So I didn't really show that process because it really needed two hands.